My favorite cake in the whole wide world. And then once it's all well done. Okay. Today we're making citrus olive oil cake. It's one of my absolute favorite recipes. I love it so much I even baked it for my own wedding. Yes, I baked my own wedding cake, but that's a story for another day. Let's get started on making this citrus olive oil cake and you'll see why I love it so much. I have all of my ingredients here and you're probably thinking one thing. 1 1/4 cup of olive oil, how is that possible? Well, believe me, the olive oil in this cake not only gives it moisture, it also adds so much to the flavor. Not in a way that is savory, but in a way that it picks up all of the herbal notes and fruity notes of the olive oil and gives it this silky richness that makes it unlike anything you've had before. You have to just trust me here. All of this olive oil will be well worth it. I'm going to crack my eggs into the bowl for a total of 3 eggs. I'll give these eggs a light whisk just to break them up. And then I'm going to add in my sugar. All of the exact measurements for these ingredients are in the caption below. Next, I'm going to stream in my olive oil and whisk as I do that. You might notice that the olive oil isn't completely emulsifying right away, but don't worry about it. Just keep stirring and it will mix together perfectly. Next, I'll add in my milk. In the recipe, I call for 1/4 cup of orange juice, but this is something that I have been experimenting with a little bit. I've used Grand Marnier. This actually is orange cello. It's homemade orange cello that our friends have made for us, and I've used it the past few times I've made this recipe, and it is a nice touch. So feel free to use orange juice. Again, Grand Marnier is a great option, or limoncello, orange cello, whatever you prefer. This is now completely smooth and mixed together. So what I'm going to do is zest an orange and a lemon, add them to this mixture, and then get my dry ingredients. I have my wet ingredients over to the side there. Here I just have flour, and in this bowl I have baking soda, baking powder, and some salt. I'm going to whisk as I add my wet ingredients because there's a lot of moisture in this batter, and the last thing I want is to have lumps of flour. So what I like to do is mix about half, and then once it's all well done. Okay. I'm back. I'm going to keep mixing. I'll add about half of the batter and then continue to add the remainder just to make sure that the lumps of flour have broken down before I kind of overwhelm it with too much liquid. So now I'll add the rest in. I'll set this aside and then stir until everything is combined. I love this recipe because there's no real special equipment needed. It comes together with just a whisk and simple ingredients that, honestly, if you're in a bind and looking for something to make, you probably have all of these ingredients in your house already. So it's not something you have to go out and make a special trip to the grocery store for. So whisking this together just until combined and there's no lumps of flour left in there. Once you start mixing this together, it is quite apparent, like this is not your average cake batter. It is so silky and mixes together so well. It's such a wet batter too, so I mean it would be virtually impossible for this cake to be dry. So now that it is all mixed together, what I'm going to do is get my greased cake pan and pour it in. Here I have my greased cake pan, and there's so much oil and moisture in this cake. I typically don't have an issue with it sticking, but I would add a little bit of butter or oil just for a little bit of insurance to make sure that it doesn't stick when we go to unmold it later. And honestly, this recipe comes together so easily. It's really like a no fuss recipe. No special equipment, no weird ingredients. But what's interesting about it is it's still such an impressive cake, and one that is requested by family and friends again and again and again. I really think you're gonna love it. Now, this will go in a preheated oven for 55 to 60 minutes. You'll know it is done when the entire cake turns a beautiful golden brown color and you do a toothpick test to make sure that the center is completely cooked. Remove it from the oven and let it cool completely. The moment we've all been waiting for. The cake is out of the oven and has completely cooled. Since it is such a simple looking cake, what I like to do is dust it with a little powdered sugar and a sprig of rosemary to make it look a little more special. I'll dust it with just a little bit of powdered sugar. And a sprig of rosemary. Now, time to taste. It's gonna be hard for me to act surprised at how good this tastes when I've made it literally 100 times. So I'll do my best. I'll make a little slice. Cutting into the cake, it is so tender. The olive oil flavor on this is really pronounced, and not in a way that is savory, but you get all of the characteristics and personality, let's say, of whatever olive oil you use. So make sure when you are using an olive oil for this cake, it's one that is high quality, has some decent acidity, and is one that you enjoy to eat on its own. I can't wait for you to try this citrus olive oil cake recipe. You will immediately know why it's one of my favorites. If you like this recipe, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss a future one. Thanks for tuning in.